this bar sort of answers that age-old question, what would it look like if someone put a cupping lab in a grade school gymnasium? They said it couldn't be done. They said, I didn't have the juice, yet here I am with the juice, and I'm doing it. In fact, I'm doing actually part 3 of the roasting series, or whatever you want to call it. And for those unfamiliar, this is actually not me talking about roasting coffee or really anything that makes a whole lot of sense in the context of a coffee channel. Instead, I'm roasting you, or I guess a very personal extension of you, your home coffee setup. As always, I put out the call for self-submissions here on my YouTube community tab, as well as Instagram, and of course, y'all came through. So today we have a bunch of new bars to judge and roast, as well as one returning challenger looking to eke out a bit of a higher score. So with all that out of the way, we're going to dive right into setting these bars ablaze after a quick word from this video's sponsor, Standart Magazine. If you're into coffee, its culture, and learning about the world around it, Standart Magazine is the perfect addition to your brew bar or coffee table. With quarterly releases, they shed light on issues both inside and outside of the cafe, highlighting people who elevate the industry, and deep dives into new ideas around all things coffee. To sweeten the deal even further, each issue also includes a sample of coffee from some of the world's best roasters, to give you the full sensory experience. You really can't beat the combination of fresh coffee and fresh print. So head on over to standartmag.com/Sprometheus, use the link in the description or code Sprometheus at checkout to snag yourself $5 off your very own subscription of Coffee and Culture, shipped direct to your door nearly anywhere in the world. And if you're still on the fence, you can actually try Standart Magazine for just the cost of shipping. There's not a whole lot to lose and a whole lot to gain. And now with all that out of the way, I've got the images queued up here on my phone, and let's dive into the first submission. And this one comes from Evan. And immediately, to me, this is the coffee bar equivalent of a mullet. Now, I don't know how international the mullet term is. There's a saying that's, party in the back, business in the front, something like that. And that's what your bar is saying. There's business up top and there's party in the bottom, though it does look like it's mostly wine that's down here. So it's not much of a party, let's be real. Maybe a PTA meeting, handful of middle-aged people talking about parking and weather. And there is an odd thing here. If you zoom in a little bit, you'll see that there's like these yearbook photos or mugshots. I don't know, it's a thin line really. But in terms of the gear, you got the famed dual boiler, DF64, bonus points for having a standalone tamper. I always feel like the floating tamper on the Brevels are just an odd thing. Overall though, I feel like the layout is decently balanced. You do have a flat and a conical. It's kind of weird with the headshot photos. And what's with the secret book that's kind of like at the very bottom underneath the bar here? I'm curious as to what that is. But I think this one, we're starting out, we're going to be nice. I guess we're going to start out feeling good. We're looking at a 6.25 out of 10. Next up on the chopping block, we have Sietse, who, I don't know, I suspect this person is left-handed because it feels like there's just a whole lot of empty space over here, like a whole lot of empty real estate between the grinder and the machine. So either you need that extra space for like your left-handed puck prep where you're doing all the things, or this is just the coffee equivalent of manspreading. I'm not sure, but it does appear that your coffee bar does spill over and is blocking part of your kitchen, which looks like has the oven in it. I see a bit of an oven hood kind of peeking out up top there. So it seems your priorities are sorted. Brewing space, check. Fire safety, meh. But overall, it does look like a Mazzer Mini E, which I started with a Mazzer Mini-ish grinder. I love them. They're bulletproof. E61 obviously is, always a pretty solid, safe choice. So I'm sure you're pulling good shots. But I'm looking at the cups on top and the portafilter. And if I'm not mistaken, that's a La Marzocco portafilter. And those cups say La Marzocco. So to me, it looks like you're trying to slowly piece together your dream La Marzocco machine. This is a post-filming edit, and apparently they did it. So all in all, I would say it's generally a functional, though awkwardly laid out bar. A solid grinder, which I think is key. But at this point, I think I'm leaning on a 5.5 out of 10. I may regret that later, but that's what my heart's telling me. So onward we go. And next up we have Gregorio, who nerd alert, boys, we got a reader on our hands. And just not any reader, someone who reads Star Wars books, which I don't know if I've seen one of those in a while. Probably not since I was a kid, but we all have our embarrassing hobbies, I guess. But this one hits a bit of my main peeve points, right? Forget the Star Wars book, no points off for that really. But I see coffee themed art. And to me, it just feels too on the nose. I don't like coffee themed art on coffee bars. It just, for some reason, it irks me. In terms of equipment, I will say solid choices. Gaja Classic. I've enjoyed that machine, even with minor mods. And this one looks like it might be more modded because I do see what looks like a little monitor up top, but I'm not 100% sure. Plus, you've got the DF83 and the Fellow Ode. And also, there is some nice color coordination happening here. I'm going to say you're going to lose some points on not balancing it out with a conical, which would give you obviously a broader brewing experience, but also a higher score in this case. But all in all, not bad. I think 5.75 out of 10. All right, so next up we have Ankit, and this one is the returning submission looking for a higher score. And the last time their bar was on here, they got a 4 out of 10 for some poor design choices, right? They had a large gap between their machine and their grinder. They also had that Live, Laugh, Love plus coffee art sign with like different coffee drinks on it. I just can't stand that stuff, to be honest with you. So let's see if they've made an improvement. And at a glance, I can say yes. There's far less clutter. They've swapped out the syrup station for, it looks like, a filter coffee area. They've upgraded from the Rancilio to a Leylit with flow control. But overall, I'd say the cabinet is still giving that farmhouse minimalist, while the light is more hospital waiting room. So generally, I'd say it's definitely above the previous 4, but the vibe is still not it. So I'll say a 5.75 out of 10. And next up, we have Dave. And it would appear that Dave is using his grandma's dresser as his coffee bar. And this towel, beyond being massive for what I assume it's used for, like maybe cleaning a portafilter from time to time, it's also giving kind of those dreaded Live, Laugh, Love vibes, plus, again, coffee-themed art. So that's a lot of points dropping off pretty early. So that means your equipment is going to have to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of your score. So I do see a Gaja Classic, again, possibly modded. That's a thumbs up. Eureka Libra, big fan of that as a daily espresso grinder, but I still don't think you're going to peak up above 6. So I'm going to give it a 5.85 out of 10. All right, so coming up next, we have Samuel. Now, immediately, just first glance, I like what I see, and it's not just because of the blurry cat cameo. For one, we've got a nice accent wall. I think the green is a nice touch. There is an impressive plant, like a Monstera over here, which, I've recently gotten into plants, trying not to kill them. I've been doing a pretty good job so far. And some nice natural light, which I think is good for a home bar. On top of that, it doesn't look like it's staged, right? I see a towel tossed onto the bar. I see a screwdriver. So you didn't clean up to try to get a higher score because you know that I'm kind of a neat freak. So that's good. Points for honesty. Gear-wise, I will say there is a good ratio of grinder to machine. I always stand by the importance of the grinder. So a high-end Malkonig, it looks like an E80 being paired with a Rancilio Pro X. Very capable setup. E80 might be a bit overkill for home, but you know what? It is what it is. So all in all, I think I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Okay, we have next up on the chopping block, Koral. Koral! 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 Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But as we can see here, Koral is clearly testing the tensile strength of their drywall by hanging what looks like 100 pounds of dusty coffee kit off of it. And, it just feels very cluttered and chaotic. It's not really as you can see from behind me, I don't really love that cluttered vibe. And really, who needs 4 Commandante grinders? Who needs 4 of them? Explain yourself. At this point, you should be using a couple of them for consistently ground salt and pepper. See the way that extracts over your food. I don't think the Linea Mini and the mix of a flat burr and conical can really pull me out of the chaos of this bar. I can't get over the feeling that I'm going to take a Supreme branded mocha pot to the head while I'm standing there at any moment. And because of that, I think this bar is a 3.25 out of 10. All right, we're moving on to Nicolai, who, unlike the last bar, has an acceptable number of Commandante grinders. And do we want to guess what that is? It's 1. Also, looking at the bar, it's fairly well organized, but not clinical. The equipment and all those pieces I've used and enjoyed. You've got the flat burr, Matzerfilos. You've got the conical Niche Zero. Probably one of my top 3 espresso machines of my experience in coffee, the L'Elite Bianca. Extra point for the consistent color theme for sure. Really, the only things that kind of pulls me out of this is, for one, you do have coffee art, and the space itself doesn't really have much ambiance, je ne sais quoi, I don't know, for lack of a better term. So I think it's fair to call this a 6.5 out of 10. And next up, we have Radak. And this bar sort of answers that age-old question, what would it look like if someone put a cupping lab in a grade school gymnasium? So straight off the bat, you're losing points for aesthetic. It's a theme that has come up in previous roasts as well, but I just can't get behind the EK as a home grinder. Sorry, I know there's a lot of EK folks out there. It's just so loud, so big. It just overkill across the board. And if you're not even using it for espresso shots, are you really even using it, to be fair? So obviously there's no espresso in this image. So in my mind, this one is just too basic. And, espresso is greater than filter for real. So I think I got to give this one a 2.5 out of 10. And next up we have Pau, who, if you look closely, it looks like they're either trying to hide or at the very least distract from their country cottage backsplash tile. It's got a very, Little House on the Prairie sort of vibe to it. It also looks like they're trying to either cut off or block off this mat on the far side, which to me looks like a espresso basket, portafilter, something. So I would count that as coffee related art. Otherwise, the layout does make sense. The equipment is solid. Sanremo U is, a pretty solid piece of kit in my opinion. I'd love to see a conical in the mix to balance it out a bit, but you do have some greenery, you've got some natural light, which again, I'm kind of a sucker for those things. Though it does, again, lack some ambiance, right? It feels a bit plain. It's not as bad as a blank wall, but all things considered, I think this is a 6.8 out of 10. All right, next up we have Sidney. And just at a glance, I have to say that this one strikes me as like the break room of an office where the manager is a Reddit mod for r/espresso. You've got a simple Expo Bar office barista machine, and yes, that is really what it's called, look it up, paired with a Weber EG1 that has a lot of bells and whistles. But in the end, I do think the juice is really worth the squeeze when it comes to the grinder, so I just hope it works a lot better than my key did and that you don't need any customer service because you're not going to get any. Also, I'm no big city scientist, but these kids' vitamins likely are supposed to be stored in a cool, dry place, and basically the opposite of an espresso machine cup tray. Now, I'm sure that you and Deborah and HR make good espresso on this setup, but it's missing cohesion with colors. The lighting I can see that you tried, but it's kind of getting pushed back by the overhead lights. It just sort of feels a bit flat. And the overall character of the space is lacking, in my opinion. So I think this is a 4.5 out of 10. Next up, we have Ben. This whole setup to me looks very cold and sterile. And if I had to guess, I would say this is the coffee bar of a dentist who really only drinks coffee through a straw, so he doesn't want to touch his teeth. When it comes to the equipment, I don't really have much to roast. There's really not much to riff on here. Both are capable pieces. Though I will say it still bothers me that Option O doesn't offer white finishes, but of course that's not your fault. The space, like I said, is clean but cold, functional but boring. So I think this is just a flat 5 out of 10. The equipment does a lot of the heavy lifting on this one, as it often does in many of these. And coming up right behind it is Manuel, who maybe isn't quite on the dentist level. I would say maybe a dental student, maybe a dental assistant. Very similar overall setup, clean, very cold, functional, but overall boring to look at. The wood tones across the machine, the table, and the grinder don't match, and for some reason that clashing in my brain, I don't like it. But you do have flow control, so that gives you a bit of an edge on that. So I'd call this one a 5. This is tougher because the last one was a 5 out of 10 and it's very similar. I think this one's just a little bit over with the flow control. I would say a 5.15 out of 10. All right, next up we have Ondrej or Ondrej. I'm not sure if the J is silent, the J is a last initial. I'm gonna lean on that being Ondrej just because it's giving a vibe. So Ondrej or Ondrej is either one of two things. Either a complete coffee hipster who is full analog and collects vinyls of Animal Collective and Elliott Smith, or like me, just has sensory issues and loved the experience of brewing espresso without a pump. So I would guess either one of those or maybe a mix of the two, hard to say. Either way, I'd say it's a capable setup. The La Pavone lever is classic. And honestly, the only thing I can really zero in on here is the etched wood thing behind it. It says something about the moments, whatever. I mean, I think this does fall into the live, laugh, love category. So points off for that. Points off for just kind of a generally boring space. And that may just be the photo. It's very close. But I got to work with what I got. And what you got is a 4.75 out of 10. All right, I think I've got time for one more setup, and this one comes from Suad, which at a glance, I would say I'm generally happy with what I see. There's obviously some effort in the aesthetic here. You've got kind of a black and gray theme, you know, some white marble finishes on the counter and on that weird lamp thing. Natural light, a wall that's not blank, and no coffee art in sight. So all those things are chef's kiss, I guess. But, equipment are also both pieces I've owned and loved. But another pet peeve is arazins. And that's the idea of storing cups open side up. Now, I'm not sure if it's just me, but they're just sitting there collecting dust and debris and errant skin cells, and then you're just sipping on that with the nice Colombian geisha, and it's just really not my jam. So points off for that. It does lack a little bit of life, some color, a plant maybe. It also has this feeling that's just kind of like a museum or like a stuffy art gallery. Like if I were to speak, above a whisper, I get shushed by some lady with thick rimmed glasses. So overall, the gear and the aesthetics together, I'd say it's a solid 6.75 out of 10. And on that note, I think it's time I start wrapping this one up. So of course, a quick congratulations to Samuel for taking the best in show in this episode. You are just an arm's length away from the top spot overall, which I think belongs to another Samuel. I think Samuel Minderman from last roast. And then you have Another Coffee. There is, obviously an aesthetic tying these top bars together. So, if you're looking to try to submit in the next episode, you can kind of see what I'm looking for and what really draws me into getting a high score in these roasts and ratings. But of course, a big thank you to everyone who also submitted. If your bar didn't make the cut this time, of course, you're more than welcome to resubmit next time I reach out or post about doing one of these, another 6 months or so. Of course, if you didn't make the cut, there's probably a reason for that, and take it as you will. It might be a positive thing, but in the end, a lot of the bars I looked at, there was nothing really drawing me in that I could riff off of and roast. So maybe plant something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. That said, if there also is comments on the roasting, if you thought that I gave some score too high, some score too low, you want darker roasts, lighter roasts, whatever. Drop your thoughts on all that stuff and more in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications when new videos drop. Check out my Instagram at Sprometheus for more coffee content. Help support the channel by considering becoming a member for unique exclusive perks. And as always, stay caffeinated. Pony Boy.